Hey everyone, I'm Kyle Kramer, the CEO of the Earth and Spirit Center, and I'm joined today by Dr. Tony Zipple. Hi, Tony.
Good to be here. Hi, Kyle.
Oh, it's good to see you. And we are really excited because you will be teaching with the Earth and Spirit Center for the first time in the spring. You're going to be teaching a course in our continuing meditation series. This is courses aimed for folks who have some experience with our coursework and with meditation. The course is called Taking in the Good, the Science of Changing Your Brain for the Better. And you come with tremendous amount of background and experience and credentials to teach a course like this. So before we dive into the course, I'd love to hear and have you share with our viewers just a little bit about who Tony is and maybe the high points of your professional and personal journey.
Sure. I'm identify as a psychologist primarily. I am still licensed in Massachusetts, but I've done a lot of kind of non-traditional psychology work. I've got really deep roots in positive psychology. How do we focus on the things that we know that help us to do better as opposed to focusing on pathology? And I've done a lot of work in the area of coaching, happiness studies, those sorts of things. So I bring all of that to this kind of training. Most of my career I've spent managing large community behavioral health organizations, but I'm a lifelong learner. I'm a recovering academic researcher, if you go back far enough, and have always had a toe in the water around what is evolving and what's new. And I think what we're learning about the implications of positive psychology, science of happiness, is just really ground shaking, and it's going to change the whole field.
Yeah, well, I just think it's fascinating, the journey you've been on. And I remember reading in your bio that you spend a lot of time walking your big white dog, who just made an appearance behind you.
My big white dog, who's sitting in the background, he's kind of my office mate these days.
There you go. But you've been in Louisville. You said you're licensed in Massachusetts, but you've been in Louisville actually for over 20 years, right?
Well, not quite that long. I've been here about 12 years now.
Oh, okay. I thought it was '01. I'm sorry, I had my math wrong there.
Yeah, and I was in Chicago for 8 years before that, and in Boston for a really long time before that. I'm a northern boy by birth. Grew up in Michigan and have lived most of my life north of here.
Okay. Well, me too. So neither of us hopefully will get kicked off the Louisville Island, even though we've fessed up to that. Well, so let's talk about this course, Tony. Again, it's Taking in the Good, the Science of Changing Your Brain for the Better. What are you trying to do in this course? And particularly, what connection does it have with meditative practice? Because obviously our audience here at the Earth and Spirit Center are mainly quite deeply committed to their own spiritual growth and a meditative practice, particularly around mindfulness. What are the connections there between changing your brain and mindfulness and spiritual journeying?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and there are lots of overlaps. In fact, this whole structure was originally developed by Dr. Rick Hansen, who is a psychologist by training and a researcher, and also a really pretty well-known Buddhist teacher. And he runs retreats and has looked a lot at the overlap between what we're learning about neuroscience and Buddhist psychology, and just fascinating learning at that interface. And that's at the heart of what this is about. At its core, the course is going to talk about kind of the negativity bias that our brains have, and how we're hardwired to focus on and overemphasize negative things that happen around us. And the challenge for us is to reverse that. If we can stop for a minute and be present and aware and appreciate the beneficial experiences that are available to us at any minute, all the time, we can really work on changing some of our neurobiology. We can work on some of the neural pathways and strengthen the ones that help us to increase awareness and focus on beneficial experiences and reduce the pull of that negativity bias. And so you see a lot of that same kind of work that goes on in meditation practices. You want to try to avoid, for example, suffering as the result of suffering,
The
avoiding the
second
second
arrow, right?
arrow.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and it's not that this course is going to tell you you shouldn't pay attention to bad things. I mean, bad things happen. Pain and suffering is an everyday part of life. It's real. But the question is, do we have to make it worse than it is? And are there other things that we can pay attention to at the same time? So there are lots of ways that this, I think, is going to overlap with meditative practices. It's not mindfulness per se, but it's a lot of centering and presence and trying to be here in the moment with things that are really going on around you. So lots of overlap, I think.
Yeah, well, and I love how you're talking about shifting from a negativity bias to a positivity bias. First among the guilty, but haven't all of us lived through a pandemic and a toxic political kind of landscape right now, and there's so many opportunities to be negative. And I love the idea of rewiring our brain for positivity. It just sounds like an absolute superpower.
Well, really helpful. And it's really different than 15,000 years ago, life was a lot simpler. Things were really kind of boring and peaceful. And then that was punctuated by moments of pure terror. But then we got to return to sort of stable state and back under control, and things are calm again. Today, as you're right, with this sort of flood of news and opportunity to focus on all kinds of things happening that are bad all over the planet, it's hard to get away from it. And we can really have that sense of threat and difficulty and challenge present at an elevated way all the time. And
Right, we
that's
just get it,
really
our
awesome.
cortisol buttons hit all the time.
You bet.
Well, I'm so grateful, Tony, that you bring such amazing expertise and skill to this. So we're very excited to invite those in the Earth and Spirit Center community who have been longtime meditators and students of meditation and spirituality. I think that it sounds like they and others, whether beginning or advanced, could greatly benefit from your course. Again, one more time, it's called Taking in the Good: The Science of Changing Your Brain for the Better. This is going to be taught starting in February 13th through March 20th, every week from 7 to 8:30 p.m. So for a 6-week course. And you folks can learn more by clicking the link in this email or the link in these video comments, or going to our website, earthandspiritcenter.org. Plenty of ways to find out more about you and about your course. And again, we are looking forward to seeing you in the spring. Thanks, Tony.
My pleasure. Good to see you, Kyle.